Good morning and welcome to my channel. I hope you're looking at this video. It's an update on a video I posted about 8 hours ago because the post I made 8 hours ago has been made obsolete by the updated model. So it had been a trilogy, but as we know, most trilogies become 9-part or 7-part series. This is now part 4. All models are wrong. COVID-19 and the Goblet of Fire. Okay, let's get started. I have a philosophical question for you. Okay, it's about what a model's good for, right? How stable should a predictive modeling tool be that is designed to help hospitals plan? So if it changes 10% in a day, or 20% in a day, or 50% in 2 days, or 100% in 3 days, or 10% in 20 days, which of those, where do you draw the line where it's too variable to be even useful as a model? Well, let's find out. So today, this morning, got up, got on, saw this very, very well written article by the Washington Post. They've actually done a great job covering this. U.S. authorities on Tuesday reported 30,700 more people got infected and 1,800 deaths. Nationwide, one computer model of the disease future spread, relied upon by governors in the White House, shifted its estimate of COVID-19 death toll downward. Instead of roughly 94,000 deaths as estimated a week ago, the University of Washington model now predicts 82,000 by late summer. So that's 14,000 out of 94, like 1/7-ish, 1/6-ish. So 16-20% change. Seems like it's not too bad if it's across the whole summer. But as you saw, if you saw my long video last night about this, there's so much more about this model that's not being reported that suggests that every aspect of the model is unstable. And I said last night it's unstable, it's unreliable. And I said since the the April 5th model was essentially a new model from the April 2nd model, making dramatically different predictions. What's to say they won't have a new model in 3 days that's dramatically different again? Well, apparently they listened to me, because April 8th, this morning, they've rolled out some new predictions. Now, these predictions, as far as I can tell, are only available on their website, because there's no release yet as of 9:30 Eastern time of a updated page. They used to do a PDF of, well, what's different between the models and why it's changed and what are the important differences. And they usually do a press release. Neither of those things have happened yet. You just have to go to their website and actually scroll around to find this difference. So maybe they alerted some of the news folks, or maybe some of the news folks were looking at the website and said, wait a minute, this doesn't match. But I'll show you that. But let's get started with some other things. The 60,400 U.S. deaths now is being forecast on April 12th. I'm sorry, and the peak is on April 12th instead of April 16th. So two things have happened since the April 5th model. We went from 95 to 80, now we're going to 60. So in that swing, we've lost a third of our deaths, which would be great, right? That's awesome. Woo-hoo. Now, probably the one thing that was stable last time was that both the April 2nd and the April 5th model said April 16th is the day it's going to peak. So that was 2 weeks away, and then on the 5th, that was 11 days away. And now they've said, no, April 2nd will be the peak. So it's the 8th today, and the 12th is in 4 days. So now they're predicting 4 days out. Is that a predictive model in a way that any U.S. hospital can react to? And in the Washington Post article, they said experts note that this model has not been consistent with many of the other models. Okay, well, on the 5th, I talked about the press release last night. The revised forecast from the 5th reflects a massive infusion of new data, said Dr. Christopher Murray, director of the Institute of Health Metrics and Evaluation. I really am angry about the way this is being handled, because that suggests we've got massive new data and therefore we've really got this thing solved, right? If you have massive amounts of data, a few days of data shouldn't change anything. Bah! And in their FAQ, they still said on the 5th, 3 days ago, 2.5-ish, our model is designed to be a planning tool. And that would be used for hospital administrators and local governments. Local. Let me get really close. Local. That means the states have to be right. Okay? So I went looking for this morning when I saw this Washington Post article, and they had promised on the 5th that there would be a technical appendix on the 7th with all of the details of what's changed so that I could actually look at the inside of the model and see how they had changed their parameterization or their functional forms or their estimation procedure. That has not yet been published. Today, there has not yet been a press release. I'll go look again in a minute. We'll look at the website when we're done and see if any of this has changed. And there's been no summary of the changes. So I went hunting for some of the changes, and I found some that I thought you would want to know about. Okay. The model says, last updated April 8th. I'm pointing at the screen. That doesn't help you. I'm sorry. And it was updated at Pacific time. I don't know when that is. It's probably about Eastern time. In any case, the peak resource use that hospital administrators need to plan for is now projected on the 8th of April to be the 11th of April. That is Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday, 3 days from now. They predict 2,212 COVID deaths on the 12th, Sunday, the peak day, and 60,000 overall, which is really good news if we believe it. Now, I think what's going to happen with this epidemic is it's going to peak, but it's going to stay high and very slowly melt down, and we're going to have a large accumulation of deaths, not because of the peak use in a week, but because we do not do a good job in this country of staying socially distant and obeying our sort of quarantine rules, and that I think there'll be continued spread in different communities throughout the country, and we'll continue to have flare-ups, or we won't be able to tamp this down nearly as fast as is happening in Europe, I think, and even there, whatever. So now let's look at some differences. April 2nd, the model came out March 26th, published 8th, based on data through the March 24th. So the data that they used is for their very initial model stopped March 24th. So that was 2 weeks and a day or two ago. On April 2nd, they said the peak would be April 16th with 2,644 deaths that day, and they give a confidence interval. 3 days later, they said, oh no, things are happening much faster, much more dangerous on the East Coast, so it's going to be 3,130 deaths at a peak day. But now, 3 days later, they said, oh no, deaths aren't so bad. It's going to happen 4 days earlier, and now the peak is lower than either of the previous two estimates at 2,151. Now, I love that idea from a point of view of saving lives. Now, I want to point out that yesterday, April 7th, there were 1,800 deaths in this country. So the prediction of 2,151 is not very different from saying, oh, we're close to the peak. It's going to be about the same. And I'm really not at all sure how we could possibly get 928 deaths in 3 days or 4 days. We'd have to have a massive improvement. But from what I understand, there are still people all over the country in ICUs struggling to survive, and the Boris Johnson issue in the UK. Okay, so 50% here and there. What's 50% between friends? Nothing. Now crankiness gets at. I got cranky last night. I'm getting cranky again. This is, again, you had to pull down individual states, and now they have Europe up there too, so you don't have to just pick US and then the states, but you can also look at Croatia or Slovenia or France, and I have no idea if those estimates have changed today versus yesterday. I haven't gone and looked. It's just too much. I actually have a day job, and it's just too hard. But this is really important. This model has been the premier model the White House has relied on. It has been the most reported model in the literature, and then there's a parenthesis saying it differs from other models. New Jersey, April 2nd, 2,000 deaths. New Jersey has had a huge problem. Whoa, fix the model with that new massive infusion of data. Can you tell I'm angry? 9,690 deaths predicted on April 5th, with a confidence interval going from 6,600 to 15,000. So I'm giving myself a plus or minus 4,000 on one side, 5,000. I'm giving myself a 12,000 or so range on April 5th. April 8th, they say 5,277, which is outside of the 95% confidence interval. Well, I don't actually know that it's a 95% confidence interval. It's outside of the prediction interval they gave us 3 days ago. Not only that, the one they gave today has a maximum of 9,054. So last time's estimate is now outside of the confidence interval for this time. So they've just gone whoop. Massachusetts, similarly, large change in infection rates than was originally thought as the Northeast blew up. So April 2nd, 2,300 deaths. April 5th, 8,254 deaths. Oh, that zero is a closing parentheses. I hate when I forget to hit the shift key. Today, 5,611. That is within the confidence interval of what they were predicting last time. But let's look at the error prediction here. The bound is now 1,739 at the lower end to 14,752 at the upper end. That's an almost 8-fold difference. So it would be like saying your interest rate for your loan is probably going to be 2%, but it could be anywhere between 1 and 9%. It's probably not going to matter. For those of you who've ever, oh man, I'm so angry I haven't even typed correctly. Louisiana went the other way. Louisiana on April 2nd, they said 1,834 deaths. Rural states, small states tended to go down. On the 5th, they said, hey, cool, no problem. We're gonna get this right this time. It's 746, and the maximum that we expect is 880. 3 days later, they're like, well, 948 is probably a better guess, and it could be as high as 1,200. And our lowest estimate now is 767 at the bottom of our interval, even though 3 days ago we said the best guess was 746. So, okay, all right, nothing to see here. Move along, folks. So the philosophical question comes back. How stable should a predictive modeling tool be that is designed to help hospitals plan? I argue one that changes its forecast every 3 days, and that the total deaths at the peak changes by 50% up and down between days is problematic. I argue it's more problematic that it's not a predictive model into the future anymore. It's saying, oh, it's in 2 weeks. Oh, it's in 10 days. No, oops, 3 days away. Sorry, gotta hurry. That's a huge problem because it can't be useful for planning if it suddenly is updated and the peak use is immediate, essentially. It can't be useful if the death estimates go up by a factor of 4 between April 2nd and April 5th and drop by a factor of 2 again on April 8th. So we're talking about 400% increases and then, 50% drop, which would have been a 200% increase from the original, and this is all happening within three updates, 2, 5, 8, across 6 days. So how stable should a model be? I'm not sure, but I know for sure this ain't it. And I wanted to say some other things that rhymed with it. And I'm being really flip. And I sort of apologize for that because I've written this talk 6 times over the last 7 days. And each time I haven't gotten it finished because I have a day job. And then I have had to change it because things have changed about the model and I've had to focus on the new things. And I'm so glad I got last night's thing up at 2 in the morning. Because this morning at 6 in the morning it changed. From the April 15th update, having more timely, high-quality data is vital. It's important to quantify how the disease could affect us. We're going to publish our technical appendices online because this paper has never been peer-reviewed. This model has never been peer-reviewed. They have not given us the technical information they were supposed to give us yesterday, though they did change the updates dramatically. Yesterday I ended with this: you can't rush science. But when the science points you in the right direction, you start rushing. I think they've rushed the science. There can't be any other explanation. They now have 3 models. There's now 3 Chris-Murray models that predict different things. Different things for different states can't be used by local administrators because your number is a changing target. And it changes by 200 to 400% in a matter of 3 days. So yesterday I said, hey, the Chris-Murray model, and if you're listening, Chris, I'm sorry I'm being really kind of gross and mean to you, but you've invited this by being so prominent in the press and being so good at taking praise for your model's prediction and so inadequate at expressing the uncertainty in your model. So if I'm talking to you if you're listening. I objected to two things yesterday. The way the model was presented as something that's well established and is stable, and the model itself, which was not stable and based on very little data. Well, I love the website. Still love the website. Beautiful plumage, by the way, in case you didn't catch it yesterday, is a reference to Monty Python and the dead parrot, where the dead parrot has been sold to a customer who comes back and said, I think the parrot's dead, and the answer from the pet shop owner is, oh yes, but look at Norwegian blue, beautiful plumage. Well, that's not the point. So, okay. 3 things I object to. The model has been presented, the model and the continuous radical updates. By radical, I don't mean like leftist, hey, protest, let's go take down the government. I mean like huge 2-fold, 4-fold shifts in what we're predicting. And flip-flops back and forth. I mean, it's almost like a politician. I'm for it, I'm against it, I'm way against it, I'm way for it. That's not what science is supposed to be. Science is supposed to guide rational decision making, and skepticism is an important part of science, and peer review is an important part of the skepticism process. That has been completely circumvented by the publicity about this model, and it does not deserve this attention. It has not performed. So, all models are wrong, some models are useful, and some models are way wrong. Part 4, Douglas Deutschman versus the Chris Murray model. So I've gotten shorter than last night, hit the highlights. I hope it has some impact, because I think we're really doing ourselves a disservice as a society and as a group of scientists, and